The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guests and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of S4, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast or reproduction of this broadcast or podcast without express written consent of S4 is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised.
Because we don't understand how life formed, it is difficult to estimate this probability. The likelihood of a complex molecule like DNA being created by random collisions of atoms in a primordial ocean is fantastically small. In an infinite universe, it would happen in some places, but they would be very far apart. If we want to find advanced intelligent life, our best bet is to listen for radio signals.
Look up to the stars and the forest that surround. Do you see them? Do you hear them? Are they there? SpacedOutRadio.com presents S4 with Forest Moon Paranormal's Eric Cooper and friends. Also, take the time to join the Forest Moon Paranormal Facebook group.
I knew I should have made a left turn at Albuquerque.
Conspiracy, Area 51, Dogman, Ghosts, Cover-Ups, UFOs. The hidden will reveal itself.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go live on S4 with Eric Cooper.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to S4 with Eric Cooper, broadcasting live from the beautiful mountains of Concrete, Washington. Tonight, we are talking about demons. Are they real? If not, what are people seeing and experiencing? Tonight on our panel, we have Eric Markham, our Forest Moon Paranormal Scientist, our Keith Andrews, Astrologer and Alien Specialist for Forest Moon Paranormal, Donna Cunningham of our Forest Moon Paranormal Astral Team, Bonnie Smith of our Forest Moon Paranormal Astral Team, and myself, Corey Rees. Here is where tonight, normally I would be introducing Eric Cooper as host of the show tonight, but tonight, as they say in Star Trek, I have the comm. Eric is out this evening being a fantastic dad that he is, and is watching over his little girl this evening who is ill, been running in a high fever. So tonight I'm taking things over here. All right. Hey everybody, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey.
Don't worry, we'll all wake up at some point tonight.
Exactly. So I'm going to pretend to be Eric here for a minute or so, and I'm going to do a few announcements, as we normally do, for our local people here. Due to some illness there, we are canceling our local investigation at the mill in Darrington-Oso area. Also, we have got Paracon locked down pretty well now. We've got all our speakers lined up, some of which are here on the panel this evening. Also, we have our venue locked in now. We have a great location. It's actually a Burlington address, but I always call it Cedar Woolley out here in Washington. About 3 minutes off the freeway and about 5 minutes from the Cedar Woolley area where we put our speakers up every year. So it's going to be a great time indeed. All right, so let's kind of get into it here a little bit. I'm gonna toss this out to a couple of our astral people here, what is it you're seeing on the demon side of things, and actual demons here? Because I know that we talked many times about negative entities versus what could actually be a demon, lower level demons and higher level demons. So, I mean, you see this in cases quite a bit. People keep asking, are demons real? And some people say demons aren't real. What say you?
I say they're real. We have a description of them that we, go by kind of in figuring out what we're dealing with on a case. And they're not as prevalent as some people think, but yes, we've had a few of them in the last couple months, I guess. Several months. We've had maybe two real good, really difficult ones to try to exercise out of people. So yes, we do see them, not as much as entities and other things, but yep, they're there. How about you, sis?
Yes, that's correct. I don't think we've seen maybe 5 or 6 of them in total for the time that we have been doing astral. They're usually just really strong entities, but it does seem that here lately we have had a couple of actual demon cases. And the thing that we go by mostly when we go in is a demon and entity feels different on that plane. Is the best way I can describe it. A demon can make you physically ill, where an entity can't.
Okay.
They'll make me nauseous sometimes.
Yeah. Keith, I know that you have a lot of experience mostly on the alien side, but I know that you have some on the spirit and entity side as well. So I guess the question to you is what do you see, or what have you heard, or, what have you ran into in the many years that you have been in the paranormal field?
Well, ironically, this is where our two fields actually cross over. Demons are very real. They're actually an alien race to start with. They just happen to be able to get onto the astral plane a lot easier than most of the races, which is why you don't run into many of them. But, aside from the, if you will, not psychosomatic, but mentally induced illness that a negative entity can essentially encourage somebody to do, it's very much a case. Actual demons can make somebody ill. It's just on the whole, they don't.
Okay. So, and I know that you've talked about a little before about demons being an alien race. I guess the question, or how I would put it here, because I think there may be a little bit of semantics to it, is there may, saying that there is an alien race that is, looks like and acts like and maybe even called a demon, is there not also a spiritual type entity that is a demon?
By attitude, the answer is yes. And in a sense, you're right as far as it being a spiritual, or not a spiritual, but a matter of semantics. Sadly, it's also a matter of genetics. anybody that is on the spiritual plane and is inherently negative, or has chosen to be negative, is more to the point. Because of the way that the different spiritual belief structures have painted negative energy, that's why they come across as demons, is because everybody has said this is what a demon behaves like, and that's essentially what they emulate.
Right. Okay. So, Eric, I guess the next question, I'm going to lay it off to you on a scientific side of things. How do you see this?
Well, being raised Catholic, I was always told that demons were, basically the devil's henchmen, that kind of thing. But as I grew up and looked into other research, the definition of a demon was a negative entity that had never had or been incarnated into a human or had any connection to a human soul. Well, if we take that definition, basically what R. Keith Andrews is saying about their alien race, those two definitions are very parallel. I'm not sure where I fall on the existence of the biblical demon. So much of what is described in the Bible is described, it's described with people that don't have a vocabulary that we do. So, when you have Jesus putting the 40 demons into the slime and then running them over a cliff, there's all kind of occult symbolism and esoteric symbolism in both what the demons are, how many there are in the slime, and all that. So it's I haven't encountered one, so I have to defer to Coop and the Astral team and people like R. Keith Andrews. I feel that there's probably, generally speaking, anything we have a name for or a mythology or a folklore of has a basis in truth in it somewhere.
Yeah, and that I absolutely agree with you there. By the way, I don't know, Eric, did you manage to get into Spreaker? Because I did.
Yeah, I'm in the Spreaker chat. Yeah, I see you.
Oh, the reason I was asking is because I didn't know how much Corey wanted in the way of the questions, because they're coming in hot.
Yeah, basically, if any of you guys see one of the questions, please feel free to bring it up. It's, I'll admit that I am definitely not Dave Scott. I don't multitask quite as well as he does, so I will take any assistance I can get. I'm all right with that.
Okay. There's a question out of the Spreaker chat. The guy is asking, without being stuck or attached to a perspective or body, how would negative exist?
Well, basically, there are some things out there that are just plain not nice. And, if you're talking about spirits or ghosts in general, you have to think about the fact that, when you cross over to the other side of the plane, and I don't mean into the light, I just mean when you die, that, if you're a real jerk over here, you're going to be a real jerk over there. So negativity can cross right over into that. That's there's no question about that. As far as entities and stuff go, I think the Chinese had basically kind of had it right a long time ago, when they said there was a yin and a yang, and there's a balance to the universe, both in the ethereal and on the physical plane, that, you're going to have what we would consider good and evil in balance on both sides.
Absolutely, and you've also got the third point.
I agree.
The neutral stance.
What was that, Keith? Say that again.
You've got the third balance point that most people overlook, which is the neutral the neutral stand, halfway between the positive and negative.
Isn't it funny, though, that these things seem to have the same... Okay, if you look at physics, you have the positively charged particle, the proton, you have the electron, which is the electric, and you have the neutron. It's like we see these all throughout the macroverse into the microverse. We see these polar or these polarities in all things.
We did.
Now, if somebody's an a-hole in life and they pass on, that doesn't necessarily make them a demon. It makes them a dead asshole, I guess. But
pretty much, yeah.
That'll probably be me, according to some people. But I just think.
Yeah, but you're so good at it.
Yeah, well, I've had 55 years of practice. I was raised by a tribe of wild a-holes. No, but we have most people, and I'm not throwing the psychopaths into this and the sociopaths into this because that's a different subclass. But most people have an inherent sense of what is right and what is fair. I mean, when we're kids, it's like, that's not fair. It's instinctive. So I would put that in being, the positive side. And
right.
Things that act against that inherent sense of the positive are what, by dint of being against the positive, they must be negative.
Yeah, which is, I agree with you. I mean, you and I have one point that's going to run into a snag for probably about the next 30 years, I'd be inclined to say, depending on how well your guys' field catches up. But inside the nucleus of the atom, you've got the proton and the neutron, which is your positive and negative, but there's also there's a third balance point that I don't think modern science has found yet, which is the neutral point. The electron is another part altogether, and it's outside the core.
Right, it's the circling negative charge.
But that being said, I definitely agree with what you're saying about, if you're a dingbat on one side, odds are you're going to end up primarily a dingbat on the other, but there is a transfer point that can happen. By the way, Eric, you've got a question directed at you from John Teeter. And he literally, question for Markham, do demons belong to one alien race, or can they belong to multiple alien races or negative orientation with the ability to access the astral plane?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm really qualified to answer that. I would say probably. It's in such a... Well, what I'm getting at, in such an infinite universe. I mean, the possibilities, pretty much if you can imagine it or you can conceive of it, it exists somewhere. On some plane, in some reality, it exists. So I would say that one thing is, I don't think there's a single thing that demon fits. I think demon is one of those catch-all phrases that so many things have been lumped into that because we didn't know what else to call them. It's like, damn, it's not an apple, it's not a rock, it's not an angel. Well, throw it in this category called demon. And within that category of demon, the negative entities, the alien races, the things that look like demons but may not be negative at all. I think demon became that junk drawer we all have that when you pull it open, it's just whatever you didn't know where else to put it ends up in that drawer, and that's where I think I think that's what demons what demons are. It's just, take your pick.
That actually, from my standpoint, that makes total sense. I mean, I do know there is a race that, when you look at them, you're going, no, that definitely fits the bill. But I agree with you. It's kind of like in my field where so many people call what I do, or what many people do, clairvoyant. They think that means they don't use tools, where clairvoyant really does have a specific purpose or a specific tendency to it.
So, from everything that I've ever understood as a description of what a demon is, it is an entity that has never been human, and that has been very
Okay, that's
negative.
what I was saying earlier, how, the difference between what I was taught in Catholic school and what I was taught, what I learned further on down the line, that it was something that had never passed through the human form or had contact and had enclosed a human soul.
Yeah.
Like the meat suits we're wearing now. We have human souls inside our meat suits.
Yeah. And no, I absolutely agree with that, mind you. Let's face it, if you're a different race, you're not human. It just works out that way.
They don't feel human. Their energy does not feel human at all when you're coming up against one. It's got its own little thing about it, that you can decipher pretty quick. I can, anyway.
Yeah, it's pretty instant, they'll tell.
But they're so much fun to play with.
Yeah, right.
4 hours sometimes of playing is a little bit much.
Well, okay, you encounter something on our plane. Say, I'm not saying astral or anything. You're walking through the woods, and there's this thing with wings on its back, fangs. The classical demon. But do you jump to the conclusion that it's necessarily an evil entity, or but do you judge it by what it looks like, or do you say, "Oh, damn"? Do you give it a chance to prove? I mean, do you give it a chance to prove its intent? Just because it looks that way, it could be the most peaceful, benign thing in the universe, but because it looks like what we perceive a demon to be, it would be lumped into that fear category right off the bat.
Well,
I think that was one of the best points in the book Childhood's End, where once the aliens got here, they didn't allow themselves to be seen, because basically they looked like the classical version of the devil. They were very tall, had horns, had wings, and a tail. They were more of an insect race than anything. But, I mean, it was from maybe a genetic memory. But they didn't, they had to prove how benign they were before anybody saw them. Just because seeing them would immediately have been put the whole race, the whole human race, into a culture shock, or it just.
Oh Lord, yeah.
Yeah, fight or flight will kick in.
We give anything a chance. Yeah, we give anything a chance, but you can tell pretty quick about the energy they're emitting and maybe the thoughts in their head that you might be picking up on in astral when you run into different creatures.
Oh yeah.
But, you don't know.
Can feel the
it's like we had
tore off of it. It's not. There's no.
We pulled back when good aliens came to us. When good aliens came, it's like we knew immediately.
Oh yeah. Well, that's just it. I mean, it's a nice thing about
not
being
to harm
empathic.
them.
Being empathic, you can tell if they're a negative or if they're a positive or if they're neutral. And
I picked that up pretty good being empathic myself. Yeah, you picked that up. True.
Yeah,
I love the way one person put it when they said, "Well, how do you know if it's evil?" And the response was, "Well, if it's shooting at you, it's not nice."
Generally speaking,
If
yes.
it's gnawing, if it's gnawing on your leg, it probably doesn't.
Screaming.
Yeah, if it's coming at you with a knife, fork, and a spoon, it's probably not your friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, or
No.
it may be inviting you to dinner, and you might want to turn it down.
You're the kind of like a Silence of the Lambs kind of dinner.
So I'll have my small rant here about something. I think my biggest pet peeve, and I'll make this as neutral as possible, so I don't peeve anybody off too much.
Yeah, good luck with that.
I know it.
Yeah.
Trust me, I could peeve off the Pope, so to speak. So,
But I'd enjoy doing it.
yeah,
You know?
I think my biggest pet peeve is that the highly religious think everything is a demon. I wish that would stop. I despise that so much because it's not, but you're talking about, people who just don't bother to take the time to actually think for a minute, do a little research and come up with the real answer for something. They just want to go blind faith on what they've been told all their lives and not think for a minute. And I get it, I understand it, but it's still just highly irritating to me. Anyways, that's my soapbox.
That wasn't too bad. That wasn't bad.
No, not too bad. But so what I want to go into here a little bit is, and I spoke of before, is there's higher and lower level demons, and I think Donna and Bonnie, you may be able to answer this the best. Can you define or give an explanation of what you've seen in lower level versus a higher level?
Well, what I've seen in lower level mostly is they really don't have as many others around them. The higher levels seem to have quite more of a legion, so to speak, and you can definitely
entourage
tell the hierarchy. And there you go. But you can tell the hierarchy of how things lay, and it's more difficult to explain than I guess I even thought. But you can definitely tell by the way that they respond, and you can feel the energy shifts in the difference in them.
The strength,
Okay.
you can feel their strength, and you can feel the hold they have on the person. A lot of it is how quickly they can sometimes, some people can maybe have a demon on and off for their whole life and still not be possessed, but then you have some that will come along and in 6 months a person's completely possessed and possibly dead,
Mm-hmm.
So those are the ones that are the most terrifying and hardest to, I don't want to say they're terrifying, but they're just, for the human being dealing with them, and they're a real threat. They need to be taken care of as quickly as possible, and sadly sometimes we haven't got a couple cases till they were beyond that point. And that's real disheartening when you get someone that's, like 8 days away from committing suicide and they've only had this 6 months. So it gets hairy. It's something you guys really, it is, to get the word out there. And this person went to many, many people and paid and done everything and never was able to get the help she needed to get rid of it, So,
And
yes, they're real, you can tell the power.
Well, I know with one case in particular, I found the easiest way to dislodge the chap, because the individual that I was dealing with had a real pain in the neck attachment to him, and it wouldn't let go. And he kept trying to run away from it, and I finally looked at him and I said, how about if we do this a little backwards? And he goes, what do you mean? I said, how about if we go straight at him? He goes, well, he'll kill you. I says, not if you're quick enough. And the whole thing
That's
is
right.
they are not expecting you to come at them, and they end up letting go.
Huh. Yeah, we end up using tug-of-war with it for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had those situations.
I mean, I remember one that quite literally, when I say it, why it came through the door, I don't mean it opened the door. I mean, it came through the door, and
they don't open doors.
Right. Only
Yeah.
I have a different outlook on it. So, of course, when it came in, and it literally, in an absolutely bizarre voice, it literally said, "I am Mephistopheles, you will fear me." Well, 4 people ended up turning chalk white, which, wouldn't have been bad if one hadn't been Negro to start with. But I just looked at this guy, and I went after lunch. So he repeated himself, and I said, "No, we covered that already. This is after lunch." Right? You want lunch, sit down. If you don't, go away. You're bothering me.
Yeah.
But let's face it, my outlook on that is a little different.
So,
well, the one thing that we've definitely discovered as well is that, even when we're in a combat situation, with a demon, they try to keep a very tight hold on their host. Now, however, if one of us drops our shields enough to make us look vulnerable to them, they will instantly release and go after us.
Yep.
It's a bait and trick thing.
Yeah, that's another technique we use for shifting into the sweet little girl thing.
That's actually a really good way of doing it, too.
It is. It really is. And we've found that works so much better than having a 3-hour battle because we can get it taken care of in 30 minutes.
Curiosity, but did you figure out why that works?
Well, I think we try to make ourselves look so vulnerable and innocent that they just want vulnerable and innocent. It works better with the sexual demons, too, like the succubus, incubus type.
Yes.
Definitely quicker with them.
If you present yourself in a manner that they think that you're more appetizing than what they've got, then they definitely go for you.
Well, ironically, it's sort of a combination, but what's happening is you go in there strong to start with. When you drop your shield a little, they take it as though they just broke you. And that makes you a target.
Hey, actually, I didn't think about that. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Key.
That's why they turn their back on their current, because as much as they do like the easier targets, they want the easier target that ain't broken.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, at FMP,
way to look at it too.
At FMP, we have figured out how to take care of your demon in 30 minutes or less.
I wouldn't advertise that because you're always going to find that one that's going to.
Yeah. We don't always run that 30-minute mark.
I'm pretty certain this is not a Domino's thing.
Yeah, I know. little humor there. So basically, everything that I've learned, and I'll admit, I'm still fairly new, just a few years into this heavily. I've always seen the paranormal and stuff throughout my life, but to actually be in the field fully, it's only been a couple of years. But everything that I have learned basically is that your lower level demons are the ones that like to do a lot of physical attacks, a lot of scratching and biting and different types of stuff like that. And as your higher level demons are the ones that will play the mental screwball game with you until you want to shoot yourself with a 44. And that's one of the biggest things that you can really tell the difference between something that's lower and something that's higher. Is the lower ones are just kind of a bunch of little apes, and the upper ones are the ones that do the mental screwball stuff. They're smarter.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
that's where
it sounds like you're describing a parasite, though.
Faster, stronger.
Technically, they kind of are.
In a way. But, I mean, that's where if you're a little off kilter, and in this field you probably are, it becomes so much more fun from our part, at least from my standpoint.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to play head games with somebody, there's an old saying that goes, don't try to con a con.
Yeah. Yep.
But the nice part, and I've watched you guys work for a while, and this is why I will quite readily tell people when I run into that situation, look, you're looking for this kind of work. You need to get a hold of Forest Moon because, quite frankly, my methods are, to say the least, a lot less, shall we say, politically correct, and most people are not ready to deal with that.
True.
You know, knowing my own, shall we say, communicative savvy, it's usually better to get somebody that's a little bit milder spoken. You know.
We get you though. We do. We really do. We understand that. We all of us.
We definitely have a great team. Keith, I would have to say this, that you would say that they're more mildly spoken. You have not seen the chat rooms that I have. But nonetheless,
have extended vocabulary.
Yeah, to the clients, yes. To the clients, yes. And, you know, one of the nice things that we have now is we have this really, really great aftercare team that, you know, once our serious butt-kicking duo goes in there and takes care of the issue, then we have some people to go in, and we've got, you know, people that can do education on cleansing and raising vibrations and all of the things necessary to kind of keep the stuff away. And we also have, for in the cases that need it, we also have psych on our team now too. We have 3 people in the psych field that are also paranormal people that are able to go in afterwards and assist some of the people who have been fairly traumatized. And we've had a few lately that have been fairly traumatized to deal with it, for sure.
Well, the one thing I keep cautioning people is don't take the fact that, you know, that some people are soft-spoken as figuring that means they're weak. That's usually a fatal mistake.
Sure.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I would fairly agree with that myself, because I'm, for the most part, generally fairly soft-spoken. I don't think it would be a good idea to tick me off, but I'm generally soft-spoken.
Yeah, I hear him insist Donna over there. They're exactly like that soft-spoken, but watch out. Light their fire and watch out.
Well, yeah,
I spit fire every once in a while.
See, the problem I run into is I usually hit the person between the eyeballs with a reality check and then go, oops, I shouldn't have said it that way. You know?
True. That's one of the things that I really like about you, Keith, is you're a very direct person, and I like that. But, of course, I'm a little different, too.
I like that.
You know, no, the funny thing, like, I noticed, and I forget who it was, but way back in the chat room, somebody asked how there can be negative. And, you know, in a nutshell, it really boils down to this, in my opinion. You cannot know that you're looking at a positive entity if you don't have a negative to balance it. And you can't have either if you don't have a null point. This is why you need all 3.
True.
Yeah, I mean...
True, absolutely true.
The bottom line of it is that...
You wouldn't know negative.
Life would be exceedingly bland if there wasn't positive and negative. Because you wouldn't know one from the other, and you would just kind of blasé through it. You really would.
Oh, so that's why there's so many people out there like that. Oh, wait a minute. Did I say that?
Oh, I kind of see the negative. It's kind of like a snowball effect. You know, if you take a pebble and you start rolling it, before long it gathers more and more and more. And that's kind of how the negative is. And the same way that the positive is. You know, if you take a negative, it draws more and more negative, just like birds of a feather will flock together. It's the same thing. And the more that negative draws, then the stronger it gets, and the more form it can take, and the more havoc it can cause. And to me, that's all it is. It's just a massive negative, and it may start out as one particle, but before you know it's a mountain.
Well,
it all gathers together like the flock.
Well, that's why the concept of never underestimate the power of group stupidity.
Yeah.
You know, well, like Eric put in there, God must love stupid people. He made so damn many. You know.
I'm running out of duct tape. That's all I can say.
You know, I've always kind of wondered, and you guys can chime in here as I put this out there a little bit.
Chime.
Yeah. For all these, for all of these actions that you see out there, where you see something that's negative starts out as one or two people, and then all of a sudden you have a mob squad all doing horrific things. And some of these people are people that would never in their lives ever thought of doing anything hurtful, mean, evil, or the other. And all of a sudden you have this absolute mob mentality. It's always made me wonder, you know, are these situations where something like a higher level demon comes in, finds that one weak person or two weak persons, and convinces them how to start this?
Well, before you go there,
sounds plausible to me.
but is just about as far off the beaten path as you can get. Humans have long been trying to blame somebody else or something else for their own stupidity. And don't get me wrong, one person starting it is what causes the problem. But what we have to remember is that it's a strong-willed individual that does it, and it, quite frankly, very seldom is it a demon that starts it. But because of the link on the neural net between all people, it can amplify in a real hurry. Intriguingly enough, it affects the demons the same way that a positive move can affect demons, is it can swing them the other direction as well. And that's a side effect of the net that runs over this planet.
True.
You know, I mean, I'd love to blame, you know, I would love to blame another race or another entity for my stupidity on occasion. Keep trying to tell people that when I order something and don't want to pay for it. Well, I don't want to pay for that, you know.
Yeah. So I haven't heard much from Markham here.
Humans can stir up a lot of meanness and anger.
Oh, yeah.
I
haven't heard too much here from Markham here lately. You know, what are your thoughts on this conversation? You're sitting here pretty quiet.
Well, I've always been amazed by how people get caught up in a movement. There was a movie that starred the Viggo Mortensen. I think it was called The Good German. I picked it up about Ore in Progress, and it was one of those really good movies that I never want to see again, so I'm not sure what the title. but just because, you know, it dealt, you know, I've seen it, I know what the outcome is, and okay, story told. But how people can just get caught up, and maybe they don't. When you see flash mobs, and it almost makes me wonder if on some level we aren't all at least a little empathic.
Oh, can I clarify
and
that?
We pick that up, you know, that those ones that come in that, you know, I think we invented the devil just to have somebody else to blame for our own human weaknesses. I don't think, you know, I just think that, you know, we all have that polar opposite inside ourselves. We keep it to one extent or the other choked down, but I know under the right circumstances, if I let my darkness take over, I'd probably be as bad as any demon. Maybe worse. I think they probably watch us to see. They probably watch us for ideas, because when it comes to being horrible, humans are pretty good at that crap.
You know, in all fairness,
yeah, some of them really are.
In all fairness, there, Markham, demons have nothing on you. With the knowledge you've got on the scientific field on this in this world, demons have very little on you as far as what you're capable of. And I do mean that as a compliment, by the way.
You know, it's like when I had kids at home, I told one of the kids that was chasing after one of my daughters, it's like, boy, I can keep bits and pieces of you alive and in pain for months.
I like that.
I like your way of thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I can keep bits and pieces of you in agony for months.
Can I give you a list?
Think about it, yeah. So think about what you're doing.
Yeah. We have a couple people we want him to talk to.
Yeah.
So similar to what I told my own kids when I told them to never create a problem. I have no problem making sure that your friends don't want to be anywhere near you. You know, it's all thing that you do.
Yeah.
Joe Monk in the chat room, he had a question here. He says, is it possible to be possessed by a demon that is so weak that it can't make you do anything? My first thoughts is, well, it would have to be a seriously weak person, and if it couldn't make you do anything, well,
then you're not possessed.
You're not really possessed, I suppose, yeah.
Right.
Demons aren't weak as far as I know. Not really.
Yeah, they are. That's usually referred to as gum on the bottom of your shoe, and if that's what the demon is, well, scrape him off.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you get a demon, then it definitely has the ability and the power to alter your thoughts, to do all kinds of things that you normally wouldn't do. An entity, on the other hand, it might give you an impression of something, but you can fight that on your own. But there again, it goes in stair steps, you know, as far as the strength and what they're capable of.
Well, do they get some kind of sustenance from that? Because again, it sounds like we're describing a parasite or something that, like a commensal that requires us to do something to feed it.
And that's why I refer to people that they attach to as their host.
Yeah. It's very similar to that.
Yeah.
You see that kind of relationship in it.
And you can get some nasty entities, too, that cause a lot of trouble, too, higher level entities. But, you know, we just had one recently from Indonesia that someone got at a very young age, like 5 years old, that has really just wreaked havoc on their entire being for how many years?
Right.
20-some years. And
they've developed a
codependency
form, so it's just an entity.
Right. Removing it, you know, doesn't necessarily mean that person is going to have an increased, better, perspective, maybe, but maybe not at this point, you know, especially since they're not on board, really.
Well, isn't when you have somebody like that that's been under long-term, call it curse, or they influence, they get habituated, their point of view changes, and it's like a woman or a man that's in an abusive relationship, they've gotten, on a chemical level, they have gotten addicted to it.
Right.
I mean, that's one of the things.
And this thing,
you see women that go into the same abusive relationship over and over again. It's like, God damn, you learned the first time.
Absolutely.
And it's because they're actually addicted to, without knowing it, it's being addicted to the endorphins that are released when you're under stress and you're in a crappy relationship.
Yep.
So these people are addicted to their own opiates inside their head without realizing it, and they go from bad to bad to bad to worse.
Right.
Yes.
Dawn's got a question about the current. I want to see what you guys think. Dawn's got a good question about how the trend of calling all aliens demons. Now, I think for most of us, we recognize that as BS. That's, you know, people still, to me, that is people still stuck in the 1200s who don't want to acknowledge that we are not alone in the universe. So if it's not human, it's not, you know, if it's not human, it's a demon.
Right.
That's
lack
my
of
take
knowledge.
on it.
is basically what I see there. You know, the lack of knowledge of what you're dealing with is sometimes people's biggest problem. Is, you know, if you're going to call a demon, and an alien, then educate yourself and find out what the difference is, because there are good aliens and there are bad aliens. Now, I haven't seen a good demon.
I have lived in places where ignorance and stupidity and closed-mindedness are held up as virtues to be obtained, and I'm not exaggerating. I mean,
I believe that.
More parochial. I lived in a town in Kentucky. I will not dignify it by giving its name on the air. But the gene pool was so shallow you could walk across it in sandals and not get your toes wet. And they held ignorance to be a higher virtue than just about anything else.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's when you start
and they clung to it. They clung to it like a religious cloak.
Well, and I think you just
kind of people. If the flying saucer were to land in the city square of that particular town, I think I would just like to be a fly on the wall and watch it. Because the societal meltdown in that little microcosm would be amazing to behold.
And I think you just...
But
in that little group of people, though...
I think you just hit it. One big thing
in that little group of people...
sorry, go ahead.
In that little group of people, though, if something really scary paranormal happened, the first thing they would label it as is a demon. Because that's probably all they think about is if there is evil, is a demon, you know, because they probably believe in the devil. And that would be, and then if they contacted us, we would never be able to get erased from their mind where they had burn-in demon, because sometimes even with clients in chat, we'll be telling them it wasn't a demon, but they're calling it a demon anyway. No matter what you tell them, they want to believe or have in their head because of their lack of knowledge and education, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this is just exactly what it is, black and white.
And I think Markham hit a key word there, and Trippin' Fool in the chat room just mentioned it too, is that it's a religion thing, and 90% of what you see where everyone calls everything a demon, and people are going to hate me for saying this, and you know what, they can if they like.
Here we go.
It comes from Christian-based religions, and they all seem to think that everything, the real heavy religious, are the ones that think that everything is a demon, and it's not.
Yeah.
Yep. Your angry, nasty neighbor next door could be considered a demon to those people. The guy's just a jerk.
Yeah. I heard him demonize people and say that they're demons themselves. Yep.
Well, that's what why I run into a snag when people say it's, the governmental screw-ups is being caused by reptilians. Well, first of all, we got at least that I'm aware of 10 different races of reptilians, and none of them are interested in screwing up the already decimated political system here. I mean, there's no challenge to it.
Yeah. True.
But when we're looking at the demons, I do agree with you. It has to do, the overall terminology has to do a lot with the religion, with the preponderance of religious perspective. But that being said, it's carried over into every other religion at the same time. Yeah.
Well, like you said, at that time, anything that they couldn't identify or they didn't have a nice, neat word for, everything was identified as a demon. So the word demon covers such a broad spectrum now that they put so many things in that same classification that, people just don't know how to sort out the difference. Because if it's not normal to them, which there again you have to define normal, but if it's not normal to them, then, it's on the complete opposite side of it. There's no gray area.
Yeah. And the other issue that I found, Eric has pointed out, religion is a way for the weak-minded to abdicate their responsibility for critical thinking, which is true. But the other thing that religion does do on a positive side, and what it was originally designed for before it got really badly corrupted, was to explain the inexplicable until science could figure out how to explain it.
Yeah, but it become a crutch.
Well, absolutely, and most people, as you well know, when they get a crutch, they're almost afraid to let go of the thing. Myself, I've got a cane that I don't want to use it. Of course, I keep falling down, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know that was what happened in concrete last year. I refused to use the cane, so I ended up on the floor. That worked out.
Oh, God, I remember that. I turned around to grab my beer off the bar and looked her over, and next thing, there's our Keith is laid out on the floor, just boom.
Yeah, but I didn't spill my drink.
Nope.
Well, Keith, that's where we say that comes into that was a choice.
Yes. Not a good one, but it was a choice.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, it's a wild thing how it is that and I really don't want to delve into religion too much, but it's a wild thing how it is that there are so many of and I say Christian based because you have to say it that way because there's so many of them that this one goes, well, mine's not like that and mine's not like this and mine's not like that one, but they're based off of the same idea.
Yeah.
And they all have, and Brent in the chat room brought up something earlier. He says, I was brought up Christian, raised that way, and he says, I never thought that way. And I said, well, and I mentioned to it in the chat room, and I said, well, not everybody does. Just some do, and it's generally the ones that are just absolutely hardcore religious. I mean, there is nothing out there other than what's in the book in front of them, and
yep,
that's all there is to go by on everything. And those are the ones you generally find that think that everything is a demon. And, I find it disturbing to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I found it fascinating. I used to have another radio show that I actually hosted, and I had a real well-placed member of the Catholic Church on the show at the same time that I had a really well-placed member of the Church of Satan, and it took an hour to agree with each other.
Yeah, you have to say that part again just a little bit because it kind of broke up there a little bit, Keith. Just say that last part.
I said it took me less than an hour to get a well-placed member of the Roman Catholic Church and a well-placed member of the Church of Satan. It took me less than an hour to get them to agree with each other, which made the last hour not quite so argumentative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine so. All right, so we've come upon that time here that we're going to have to take ourselves a break. When we come back from break, we will continue our discussion on demons and negative entities as such. Tonight on our panel, we have Eric Markham, our Forest Moon Paranormal Scientist, our Keith Andrews, astrologer and alien specialist for Forest Moon Paranormal, Donna Cunningham and Bonnie Smith of our Astral team, and myself, Corey Reese of Forest Moon Paranormal. Join us every Saturday night at midnight Pacific Standard Time. You can find us on Spreaker.com, SpacedOutRadio.com, and The Fringe FM. Check out Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott Monday through Fridays, Spaced Out Weekend with Joe Roop on Saturdays, and Elizabeth Anglin and Cosmic Passport on Sundays, all at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Also check out The Fringe FM with shows like Lighting the Void with Joe Roop and a plethora of other good shows. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and I want you to come on a nightly journey. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, every Monday through Friday, you can come hang out with me and the other space travelers. We have it all from Carl the Alien bouncing on by to those misfit gnomes causing havoc. It's 3 hours of fun and entertainment on those topics the mainstream really doesn't want to touch. Come get all paranormal with us at spacedoutradio.com, and together, my friends, along with our resident guitar god Bumblefoot, we own the night.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Would you like someone you can trust to look into it? We have just the place. The SOR Sightlines Report is the place for you to find answers. Whether it's Bigfoot, UFOs, Dogman, ghosts, aliens, or anything strange, the Sightlines Report will get you connected with one of our expert researchers to find out what's going on. All of your personal information is kept 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report, a place for you to find the answers you need. Only at spacedoutradio.com.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays with me, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. Our weekly feature on spacedoutradio.com will take you around the world discussing everything from the paranormal to the latest conspiracies from the top guests in their fields. We won't leave any story uncovered. Spaced Out Saturdays at spacedoutradio.com starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed on tonight's show by tonight's hosts and guests are not necessarily those of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays, Spaced Out Sundays, or SpacedOutRadio.com. Listener discretion is advised. And now back for hour number 2, we have Corey Ruiz, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal, and S4. You can find Forest Moon Paranormal on Facebook. And for more information on S4, visit spacedoutradio.com. And now, here's Eric Cooper and Corey Ruiz.
Okay, welcome back. For those of you just joined us tonight, we are talking demons. Are they real? If not, what are people seeing and experiencing? On our panel tonight, we have Eric Markham, R. Keith Andrews, Donna Cunningham, and Bonnie Smith. Welcome back, everybody.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
And
Corey?
again, I would like to, put out there that, unfortunately, Eric Cooper, our normal host, cannot be in with us tonight. He is doing the awesome dad thing. He is taking care of his daughter this evening, who is feeling pretty under the weather. Is running a pretty high fever. So, we were wishing the best for his daughter and sending health and wellness to him. So, all right, getting back to it here. I want to kind of dig in here a little bit with the Jinn. So, Keith, I know that you've talked a little bit about it before on another episode that we had done. Kind of go into and explain what you know about the Jinn.
Okay, well, first and foremost, the Jinn are an interesting people. They're a little stuck in their ways, which is ironic, but let's start with the basics. The Jinn are actually air elementals, meaning they don't actually have a corporeal form, at least not as people know it. But they do have a tendency, and I'm not entirely certain why, but they do seem to favor showing a physical form that basically literally looks like it comes out of the time of the Arabian Nights. And I don't know why they're attached to it. But it's very much that kind of style that most of them seem to take to. But they have, I think the best way to put it is their primary focus seems to be on whether or not the planet is being treated properly, more so than anything else. They just have a tendency of, if you will, picking on people, trying to get their attention, trying to get them to do what the Jinn feel are the right moves. And they don't pay attention to what society does. Like what the evolution of the human society has taken on. That's where the biggest problem is, because they're still trying to hold things in the pattern of the elemental plane of air, which is where they come from. And since we're on the topic, technically the guy in Spreaker has asked, do Jinn and genies have a common link? And technically the answer is yes. The Jinn actually are elementals. Genies just simply learned how to work with the elemental plane of air. So, I'm not sure if that qualifies as a link, but it's certainly a common ground. But the biggest problem, they are the Jinn. They do actually have an overall. The best way to call it would be a king, but that's actually the wrong term. I just forget, and Eric or one of the rest of you might know. What was the king of Persia called? Because it's that's the title I'm looking for.
What, Xerxes?
Yeah.
No, not which king. I mean the actual title.
Oh, what do they call? What's the king called? Khan. God, there was. Let's see, Khan. Oh, Caliph.
The Caliph.
Caliph.
That's the word. Caliph. Thank you. See, I knew you had an idea. But, they do actually have a leader that dictates what they're supposed to do. But the problem is, in my opinion, they got a little stuck on the idea of doing things their own way. Without paying much attention to what humans are up to. Which, needless to say, causes a problem. But before anybody jumps on it, no, Jinn are not inherently evil. little intolerant and a little short-sighted, but they're not evil. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so, Markham, you said that you know a little bit of the mythology behind some of the jinn. I'd like to hear some of that, if you could, please.
Well, I think the funny thing about studying the jinn, I mean, it's all Middle Eastern with jinn, but you see there seems to be a counterpart with the Native Americans as well. So it's like each culture seems to have had its own version of that kind of entity. And the mythology is that they were created by the same God that created us out of a fire without smoke, and hence, the whole air elemental thing, and that they aren't inherently evil, but they kind of look on us. It's almost like you can almost tie them in with the fallen angels, because they were here first. And then, God decides to make the talking monkeys and turn the earth over to them, and there's a wee dab of, there's some resentment there. And if you look into the Prophet Muhammad was sent forth to, enlighten both the humans and the jinn, that the jinn are a people. They're not, they're not like the Hollywood version, living in bottles and crap like that. They eat, they breathe, they do the same things we do. They just do it a little differently, and they have a different culture. But that resentment, where the whole thing about them always being evil, is probably because they resent watching what we've done to the planet that they cherished. They weren't as destructive as we were in a lot of ways. So that might lend to their short-sighted version of how they perceive things.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with that. That does seem to fit right smack in the middle of where mythology and reality seem to run hand in hand.
I mean, they're in Buddhism, they're in Judaism, they're in, there's even a version of the jinn from the Canary Islands, the Berber, Christians. I mean, there's something like the jinn throughout most cultures. Whether they're called jinn, whether they're called elementals, whether they're called nature spirits, dryads. I mean, you can just about tie the idea or the archetype of the jinn into any culture's nature spirit or elemental.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the funny part there, and this is one of the biggest arguments that I've had about the religions all across the board, the religions, the cultures, and I'm not talking just on Earth. I mean, on a multi-universal level, across the board, they all teach essentially the same thing. They've got different names for the different creatures, for the different races, but ultimately, they follow the same belief structures.
So basically what we're kind of talking about here with jinn is you're talking about a group of entities, we'll say, that are basically, they're not really inherently evil as we think they are, but mostly they're just kind of peeved off because we were given control of the earth, and of course we're idiots. And we've done some really screwed up stuff, and so they're kind of angry all about.
Yeah. Well, quite frankly, they're justifiably angry because of the way that mankind is treating the planet.
Well, it's like if you have a very nice home, and then somebody who outranks you puts these hellions, says, okay, these people are going to live in your home with you now, and you're not allowed to spank them for being bad. The resentment would be, that would be, basically God turned the brats loose and told the indigenous people that, by the way, these are my pet monkeys, and you can't smack them around.
But that's where it goes sideways, because in reality,
that's right.
When God did that, God actually laid it out pretty cut and dried. And he literally said, do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Yes, these guys are living in your home. But since it is now yours and their home, well, if they're not treating the house properly, beat the living daylights out of their backside and tell them to clean up their own mess.
That's what we get called.
Yeah, exactly.
They're getting their backsides whipped.
People kept telling me, when they were growing up that, people their parents used the switch on them, and I'm thinking, like, a switch. Man, most of the people I knew, their father used a 2x4.
Yeah. My dad didn't need a 2. Yeah, Dad didn't need a 2x4. He had a fist the size of my head.
Yeah, it's like my dad, 52-inch chest and 18-inch forearms, Golden Glove boxer. He wanted to hit you. You were asleep before you hit the floor.
Yeah, my dad was a very formidable man as well. So.
Yeah. Thankfully,
his thing was he'll use the belt because he was afraid if he hit me with his hands, he'd kill me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd take the belt too in that instance for sure.
Yeah, no. The problem with my dad with that was he could take a fly off a horse's ear with a 14-foot black snake.
So wow.
Putting the belt in his hand was just asking to get hurt.
Oh, buddy.
He was gentle.
Okay, so we've kind of gotten into the explanations of who and what the Jinn are. So this is one of the wonderful things that I like about having an astral team and being able to pull questions from them is, you guys have been on that side of the plane, and I'm sure that you've probably ran into these entities before. Can you talk about, what those experiences were like?
Not too bad, actually. They're not one of our biggest problems. We've had a couple, haven't we? Jen?
Yeah, but they're usually quicker to back off. I mean, it's not as difficult to deal with them. You can usually kind of say, hey, we'll make sure that there's some respect made here. It's kind of like, the guardians, your land guardians and that, tribals.
Yeah, Native American ones.
Once you make a treaty with them of, hey, we'll make sure that things are taken care of, and we're not going to, destroy the lands and things like that, then they'll usually back off.
Well, that's the nice thing about them, because they're not technically combative.
Now, I noticed you said usually back off. What about the ones that don't?
Well, they're pretty simple. Yes, I had one. Sometimes we
have one like that.
They try to be more forceful and try to force the board, but it's usually pretty simple to get it across that there's a line and it's not to be crossed. They're usually not too difficult to push back and to get the respect level there from them.
Okay. Yeah, and I find that experience definitely a little bit interesting, because I know that there has been many people that I've talked to, and I'm not going to reference anybody here just because I don't want to be throwing everybody's names out there, but for their own personal privacy sakes. But I know that there's some people that I've talked to that said that the jinn are exceedingly powerful, and generally speaking, if you had to deal with one of them, it would be a whole lot worse than dealing with the demon. So that's why I'm finding that definitely very interesting, and it's definitely an interesting outlook, when you get to look at it from the astral side, whether you're actually dealing with them face to face.
Now, if you get more than one jinn, their strength definitely increases, but a single jinn on the astral plane, for those of us that can work elements ourselves on the plane,
right.
It's not that strong. It's not as strong as a pissed off demon.
No.
So I mean, they're really not even near as powerful in that level.
Joe Monk in the chat room, he put up a question. He says, "Has anyone ever successfully used possession as a defense in a criminal trial?" Has anybody heard of that? I mean, I've heard of them actually using it as a defense.
I think they've tried,
but I don't know if they've ever been successful.
I seem to recall quite a number of years back, somebody ending up using possession, and it got commuted into an insanity plea, and instead of being locked in prison, they got locked up in the nut house.
Right, I think.
Right,
yeah, that's the only thing that comes to my mind.
But getting off of a charge, not that I've ever heard of.
No,
unless we go back
because
to the
it doesn't automatically say you're insane. Anytime a person goes to talking about things like that, there you have to find the level of normality and what's socially acceptable. And if people get to talking about that, then they just automatically throw them in that crazy category.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I know back during the witch hunts, we had a few that used it successfully, but nowadays, no.
I see that, oddly enough, as a bit of a double-edged sword. If you think about it from one way, because if somebody was actually possessed and they did something that was messed up, now you're labeled as crazy when you really weren't. On the other hand, somebody who was just using it as a thing, they got labeled as crazy. They still got locked up anyways for doing something stupid. Unfortunately, on that, they got locked up in something that's a bit more cushy than what an actual prison would be. So it's
not
kind
really
of
in today's world.
Well, I don't know. Today's world seems to get more cushy and cushy, unfortunately. But
institutions are.
There was actually back in the 80s, I think early 80s. Actually, let me think. Back the year I graduated, 1981, because I remember reading about it in a paper when I was in San Diego. There was a woman who tried to use the excuse that she was under demonic possession when she killed somebody. And that's where that whole "the devil made me do it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I think she ended up being put in. I think they ended up putting her in like the insane asylum. But I believe Lorraine Warren helped write a book about it. I think the book was "Evil in Connecticut" or "The Devil in Connecticut" or something about that. But yeah, it was. It actually it did try. The person tried to use that as a defense that they were not in control of themselves. And I find it haunting when sometimes you will see somebody who has done something heinous, and they're on trial, or they've had the trial and they're interviewing afterwards, and okay, this is somebody life without parole, or they are on death row and they know they are on death row, and nothing they say or do is going to get them off death row. And they talk about what they did, and it's like in a detached way, as if they were observing themselves do it from the outside.
And really, when the sociopath goes to work, that is literally what they do. Is they do not connect with the issue.
So how many people were considered, where it cuts both ways. You've got people that were considered, in the Dark Ages, they were possessed. They might have been epileptic, or, who knows. There was some kind of organic cause or pathology involved. But then you could have truly possessed, and they present the same picture.
Oh, yeah. And it really does boil down to, and I'm pretty certain that, that people agree with this one, but it boils down to a difference in the feeling. The energy that comes off a truly possessed is drastically different from somebody that's just a grumpy bum.
Yeah.
Well, and Joe brings up another question here as kind of a follow-up to his first question. He says, so how many innocent but possessed people are in jail? Well, therein lies the $64 million question, is we don't know. There could be a few of them, but I wouldn't count on too much of that. I really wouldn't count on too much of that, because it's not really, from the experiences that we know of and everything that we've learned, about that stuff, is that it's not really, you don't see a whole lot of that. And not in that realm of thing. Usually when demons are going after you, they're going after you to make you kill yourself more than anything else.
Well, they're doing... I've always kind of figured they're not going to make you do something you aren't willing in some part of, they're not coming up with something that's so against your nature that you wouldn't consider it. It might not be on the top of your bucket list, but it's something, they leverage something that's already there.
Absolutely
That's what I'm
right.
getting at.
Yeah, absolutely right. They can influence, but they can't diametrically alter.
Yeah.
So somebody, when you're talking about suicide, they can't make somebody commit suicide that isn't suicidal.
Yeah.
That's a whole different ball game. There are people that can do that, but when we're talking possessions, that's not one of them.
And Bonnie, just FYI,
What do you guys think about?
You're coming through real hot on that mic, so you might want to pull that just a little back from your mouth there, just a little bit.
Okay. Hold on. Yeah, you fix it here. You guys there?
Yeah.
Yep.
We're good. All right.
Hello? Hello?
Yep. Can you hear us?
Well, I can.
Bonnie? Are you there?
There, sis. I think we might have lost Bonnie.
Yeah, maybe. Hold on here.
She went off on an astral trip, or she just completely screwed up the electronics because of, looking someplace without getting the phone away from her.
It still shows her as connected here, so I think she's probably having some sort of issue there on her end. Yeah, can you hear us?
Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Okay, good. There we go.
Still, am I back in?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, we got you.
It's my new phone. I just got today. Remember I was having the phone problem? I don't know what I'm doing with it yet.
Okay.
This is an interesting comment that's in the chat room. Trippin has made a comment that there were so many kids killed last year from bad exorcisms. You know, I'm thinking that somebody was trying to do exorcisms on people that weren't possessed.
Well,
because what you're doing with an exorcism is yanking a soul out of the body. Well, if the guy wasn't possessed in the first place, you just created a problem.
Well, yeah, and you know this is the other part of my little bit of my rant with the highly religious, the super religious, is that, you know, when they start thinking that everything's a demon, well, you know, you get some poor kid with epilepsy or something, and then they want to come and perform some exorcism on them, and they end up killing them. You know, I mean, really, come on. This is, you know, this is a problem, and it, you know, as far as I'm concerned, it needs to be addressed. I mean, it's about time that we got out of the, you know, the 1200s and came into, you know, 2018 here. We're into reality and start looking at things a little bit better and stop having that mindset that everything is a demon. It's not. I mean, there are. Yes, you have demons, and yes, they do certain things, but, you know, you've got real physiological issues that people have that aren't demons. You know, you've got, you know, if you're talking the ethereal side, you've got, you know, just other entities that aren't demons, but, you know, they may be kind of jerks. Some guy that died who was a jerk before and is a jerk after, you know, and that's what I mean is... when are we going to get to the point where people really start using, you know, some critical thinking, you know? And you got a lot of people out there that think that we're absolutely nuts for thinking this stuff and for, you know, talking about this stuff. But, you know, there's, as we have stated before with aliens and other stuff like that, there's people who have been convicted to the death chair with less evidence than what we have of the ethereal.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I take a look at a lot of the stuff that people just chalk under one level, and, you know, under one label, and it's because of that, what I consider true ignorance. In other words, for whatever reason, whether it's deliberate avoidance or whether it really is they don't get it, but they just don't understand what they're talking about, and yet they think they understand. You know, now, I mean, you know, when we talk about the epilepsy thing, and, you know, trying to exorcise a demon from an epileptic, well, that'll kill him. On the other hand, death by a fatal seizure does actually cure epilepsy. It's not recommended. I tried it; it worked. It's just not a good idea.
Yeah, it's a pretty final pinpoint on that one, isn't it?
Well, if you live through it or come back from it, then you're good.
Yeah.
You know, the odds aren't good though. But, you know, it's because of mislabeling, and I mean labels are necessary for communication. But for pity's sakes, if you're going to claim to be able to do an exorcism, please figure out what an exorcism is before you start. And just because you're clergy does not mean you necessarily know.
Yeah, you know, you've got a lot of that happens where, you know, it's not just somebody thinking that everything's a demon causing something not to go bad, but it's also bad exorcisms from the same people that don't really know what they're doing. You know, and it could be somebody who is actually possessed, but if they don't know what they're doing, they cause all kinds of damage and death and everything too. It's really a vicious circle out there.
Oh, absolutely.
Not to mention they push it off. They get someone in there who doesn't know what they're doing, and they push it off even more.
And then leave it behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Leave it off and then walk away. It's like, okay, did you poke that rattlesnake for a reason?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what happens to the client or the person being affected when someone goes playing around with fire that doesn't know how to deal with it. You know, they're left with that pissed off rattlesnake then. So they're going to get it worse than they've been getting it.
Yeah,
just because something gets quiet for a minute doesn't mean it's gone.
Right.
Oh, Lord,
that's the thing most people misinterpret is that, oh, well, it all of a sudden stopped. Well, the energy's still the same. It's just being quiet, waiting for an opportunity. And, that's what nobody knows how to read, or they don't usually read, is they don't read the energy that's still there.
Mm-hmm.
I like Joe Monk's comment. It's kind of funny. He says, in my own experience, cussing, drinking, smoking, and fornicating has kept the devil and all the demons at bay. You go, Joe.
That sounds like Joe Monk. All right. Yeah. You go, Joe.
Well, I used a similar idea.
If it works, keep doing it.
Well,
that's right.
Where it came to being bullied, when somebody would start calling me names, I just list off a whole whack more than they knew, and they tended to get bored of the whole idea.
Yeah.
I mean, Trippin's got a good point in the chat room there, where he says the mental distress on kids that go through bogus exorcisms to satisfy parents or the church.
Exactly. Yes. And that happens more often than people realize.
Oh,
and
mm-hmm.
it's a continual thing, and it's probably not going to stop, anytime soon until people start learning a little bit different, start learning how to categorize things that are really going on, and better educate themselves.
Yeah, I mean,
you think over the years.
Go ahead.
How many people, like kids with Tourette's, kids with different types of disabilities or illnesses have been exercised, the exorcisms done on them that were unnecessary. Some of the disorders that we know exactly what they are today, but they didn't, and some of them choose not to even look at it today, and they still think that their child has this illness, and it's barking like a dog or doing different things, and it's a demon, and it's not. It's actually an illness.
Yeah,
they're putting it through even more trauma.
Yeah, and I mean that's the unfortunate part, is the people that are given the right to make these, and I find the same thing with psychologists, where they're given the so-called training, or they're not. I know of one case in particular where it was a social worker that the individual in question had been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, went to get medical support, from welfare, and the person that was doing the medical assessment looked at him and went, "I kid you not, so how long are you going to be a paranoid schizophrenic? 6 months?" It's that kind of poor education that puts you guys into so much, shall we say, overloaded workload.
Right. Yeah. Well, just like, children are more susceptible. They see things and they can feel things better than most adults can. And I've read in a chat before where, a child was having some problems, and somebody popped in there and made a comment that they were just child. They had active imaginations. Well, that's what happens with children that are abused and say something. Do you say the same thing, that they have an overactive imagination?
Sometimes, and that's why you've got to watch the feeling that goes with it.
Right.
Because there is a massive difference between somebody that's got an imagination and somebody that's getting abused and trying to explain what they're going through.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it becomes a major problem. And again, it's kind of like the idea that, and I think it was you Markham, that said that, they take everything they don't understand and go, it's a demon. Right.
Yeah.
It's the same idea. You lump it all under one, and it causes more problem than anything else.
Well, yeah, and it's expedient, because then you can put in a diagnosis book and you can charge for it.
Yeah.
If we're talking, if we do not take it out of rural Kentucky and just put it into the medical field. You get somebody showing up in the emergency room that's just not right. You know, you clear the paperwork and get them out of your hair by calling them paranoid schizophrenic and putting them in the, you know, the Sunshine Farm for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give them happy pills and let them go. You know. But, I mean, there's...
it's easier to do that than to deal with it. Well, because they don't know how to deal with it.
Certainly.
True.
You know, I remember visiting somebody in the nut house one day, and I didn't think about the fact that there were actual doctors standing around, and I looked at the woman after I'd talked to her for a bit, and I says, you know, there's only one difference between you and I. And she looks at me and goes, well, I'm inside. I said, exactly. But the difference is that I knew the answers they were looking for. You didn't. You know.
My dad worked as a corpsman in Chelsea Naval Hospital, and they had a lockdown mental ward. And I don't remember what he did to anger the patient, but the patient told my dad, the only difference between you and me is you sleep somewhere else at night. and Dad is like, you know, that kind of, because they used to get locked down in there for, I don't know, like a 14-hour day. And of course, the corpsman had the matches. You know, was controlling the cigarette breaks, and you had to eat with a spoon because there were no knives allowed or anything like that. So it was a pretty interesting situation.
Yeah, like you can't do damage with a spoon. I like Ron's comment. I like Ron's comment in the chat room there. I'm only going to be schizophrenic for 3 weeks. I promise. You know.
Okay. All right.
So
certainly everyone's hope. I know that.
Does my brother count for this question?
Yeah.
Joe says, have you ever witnessed a disturbed individual speaking fluent Latin? And, yeah, I mean, my brother's a little off, so, and he does speak Latin.
You know, I guess the question would be is, it seems that any time that you run across one of these entities, they're always depicted as, you know, speaking some fluent Latin. Why do they always pick that language?
Because they don't recognize the fact that there are several languages that sound similar to Latin that come from way back.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Right, dialect's different.
I just always...
Sounds like English when it comes to my brain, though, their thoughts. That's a weird thing. Yeah. Whatever, I may know they're speaking another language, but I hear it in my language, you know.
Yeah,
it's weird.
The advantage of being an uncontrolled telepath, you get to do that.
Yeah. Yes. Aliens, too. Some of them, I can hear them.
Yeah.
I just always thought that weird.
I have seen people, you know, disturbed individuals speaking a language that they really, when they were running normally, if you will, couldn't speak a word of it, and yet the second they got agitated, they would swap into a different language that they actually never learned. It's really kind of fascinating to watch. You know, and then
I bet.
You know, when you get them calmed down, they don't remember they remember saying things, but they haven't got a clue what they said, so we got to go look it up. You know.
Yeah. Get an interpretation.
Yeah.
You know, I find that very interesting, and it's you know, I question whether, you know, when you see somebody who does that come from a past life? Does that come from some sort of download? You know, you have to wonder, where does that come from if they supposedly didn't know that language?
Well, most often from my experience, most often it's because of a past life memory. Very few downloads result in a angry diatribe of any form.
Mm-hmm.
You know, usually a download comes in a language you can understand. You know, or at least the person getting it can understand it.
Right.
You know, but when it's a language that person has never learned and doesn't speak, starting in on a volatile diatribe, you know, it gets rather entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Well, I've always been told I speak other languages in my sleep besides English all the time, different ones, too.
Yeah, so
I don't know any other languages, but...
Well, I speak Mumbleese when I'm sleeping.
Yeah, I don't know what I speak. I keep telling them to record it so I can figure it out one day.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, that would be interesting
Well, I
to
did,
know.
like, apparently Joe does speak Latin, and so does Ron, it would seem. Both in the chat room.
Cool.
Or at least bits and pieces of it, anyway. You know.
Oh, as far as
Well, we
that
better
goes-
watch those two if they speak Latin now.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah,
As far-
so much for swearing. We're not allowed to do that anymore.
Yeah, as far as that goes, I can speak bits and pieces of Spanish and a couple words of German, and but I can't. I'm not fluent in anything.
I even got bored to the point of learning a little bit of Hausa, which is Northern Nigerian trade.
Wow.
I have no use for it. I'm not going to use the time that I know of. You know. But no, the thing with when you start looking at all of this, many times the brain will lock into a word or into a language that it recognizes, just to simply fill in the hole of something it doesn't recognize. Which is why so many people end up apparently speaking Latin, and when you really listen to it, you're going, that was Italian. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, also you get the charismatic Christians in the Deep South that get into that speaking in tongues, which basically they flop around on the floor and they just talk crap.
Gibberish is
There's
the
no
word.
tongue. Yeah, it's gibberish. It's not a language. It's just a dysphagic babble, but it's tongues. So.
Yeah. Ron
Yeah, the tongue's involved.
Yeah, the tongue is involved.
Yeah.
Yes.
In all honesty, I always found the tongue was involved.
I've actually been to some of the meetings, and they're pretty interesting. Those churches, I've been to a couple of those services, and not in recent years at all, but I did try it a couple times ago.
Well, I thought
I about got knocked out, too, because they get really violent, some of them. Yeah, they get kind of violent.
Town I won't name.
Like a mosh pit.
There was one of the jackleg preachers was a snake handler in that town I was talking about earlier, where ignorance is the highest form.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Well, he got bit and died, and before he died, he told his congregation that he would be back.
Yeah, but he didn't tell you how
Oh,
many
boy.
days before he got here.
Oh, he said 3 days. Well, after about 2 weeks, and this is the summer
Oh, boy.
in Kentucky,
Oh, no.
well, somebody finally got the idea that if he did come back, it wouldn't be a pleasant thing. So perhaps, so they tipped off the local cops and
Decided to bury him?
yeah, they finally, it's like they intervened. So it took outside intervention, but it was obvious old brother, what's his name, wasn't coming back. And if he did, it would have been better off that he hadn't.
Yeah, I mean, I know when I was 5, I was dead for an awful long time because I woke up in the morgue.
System 8-1.
We lost Bonnie. So.
Yeah, I know, when I was 5, I know I was dead a long time because I woke up inside the morgue. And it takes you a long time to get there. but 3 days, I think, is a little long. And 2 weeks is definitely too long for anybody that's walking by. You know?
Yeah, let's put it this way. It would have took more than a shower to get that smell off that guy.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
I have another word for that.
Yeah, I bet you do. I bet you do. No, it's it's pretty wild what some of that belief goes. You know, it's amazing to me sometimes how the belief can be so strong that it just absolutely outweighs any form of self-thought or logic. It just, wow, wow.
Oh, just a comment to Brent here. You know, in all fairness, like Brent says, I hate to disagree and mean no disrespect, but I have been in a church where that stuff has happened and it is legit. I got caught up in it and could feel the spirit. And I absolutely agree. There are some churches where it does happen.
Yeah.
It's just sad to say the odds are really against it. There are not that many people well enough connected. You know.
Yeah, true.
The good news is that Brent had the what I call the fortune to experience a real issue.
True.
Yeah, the unfortunate part about it is that there's so many that are. Yeah, no. You look at like some of these big, huge, rich, famous ones that you see on TV, and their big, huge congregations, and you see them start to do the in tongues thing. That is such BS. Some guy laying on the floor, doing the running man in a circle, and trying to speak some gibberish. No, just no.
I saw somebody do that one day, but it wasn't in a church, and they called it an epileptic seizure.
I think that's what most people would call it. They look at you, are you okay?
True.
But, in all fairness, when there is somebody like the one that Brent apparently got the pleasure of seeing, or experiencing is a better way of putting it, that's something that you want to remember, because it's a very rare thing to actually find somebody that does it. That does it legitimately.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never found that when I went to a couple different meetings like that. It didn't feel right, to
But
me.
if we put that on the other foot, you take a look at what you do with the astral work.
Sure.
How many so-called astral groups out there have you run into that don't do it legitimately, as compared to
several.
What kind of ratio you're looking at? It's the same problem.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
So we're
Trippin goes not an S4 unless we lose someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No kidding. So as we're kind of winding down here, we got about 7 or 8 minutes left here of the show. I kind of want to go around the panel here and just get your final thoughts on things. We've talked about a lot of stuff tonight. We've talked about some messed up entities. We've talked jinn. We've talked demons, high and low level. So I'd like to kind of just go around and get everybody's kind of final thoughts for the evening before we wrap things up here. And Donna, I'll start out with you. Give me your final thoughts on the stuff tonight.
Well, final thoughts on demons would be, there are a few out there. We don't run across them as often as you think. They're mostly just entities. And, it just kind of depends upon the situation as far as being able to tell the difference.
Okay. Bonnie?
Yeah, don't think everything's a demon, but, you can have a bad spirit scratching you or an entity attacking you. But get help if you're in doubt, get someone to look at it and come in and say, okay, this is what this is, what we can do about it, because if you do come across a demon, they are nasty and they can do a lot of damage in a short amount of time to a human's brain, depending on, they try to attack those that are the easiest targets too, so just beware, of your situation. If you have strange thoughts come in your mind, they work on your mind a lot, things aren't right, get a hold of somebody and hopefully some of them knows what they're doing.
Indeed.
Yeah. You know, I mean, the thing I'd like to point out is that, you know, it doesn't matter whether we're talking about a demon or an elemental or what label you put on it. If the thing is nasty, you got to be careful and get the backup you need. You know,
right.
You know, and like you said, hopefully you get somebody that actually can.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, very much so. Any other thoughts there, Keith?
Just the one thing that I look at is, you know, all demons are, you know, some demons are aliens, but demons and negative entities, just because they're negative doesn't mean they're alien. It also doesn't mean they're demons. Sometimes, as you pointed out, they're just nasty people with a bad attitude.
Yeah.
And that's more often the case than any of the above.
True, very true.
Yep.
Markham, your thoughts for the evening?
Oh, I just hope I get to be one of the spectral a-holes after this life. I think that, you know, letting my inner self shine is going to be so much fun.
You are such a twisted on occasion. You really are.
Well, I just don't understand, you know, people that haunt work or haunt some of the venues that are haunted. You know, hey, I'm hanging out at the rock and roll venues, and I'm gonna hang out. I'm gonna hang out at the, you know, the strip clubs, the rock and roll venues, the stuff I didn't get to enjoy enough in life. You know?
Here, I was thinking that you should go to, like, you know, down to the kindergartens where the kindergartners will actually talk to you and, you know, be nice about it. But then I'd have to be nice to them, and that kind of blows the whole thing. I'll probably hang out the mental institutions and help drive the fragile further over the edge.
Oh, boy. We're going to be getting calls on you. We're going to be getting calls. Markham's raising hell on the other side somewhere.
Why am I not surprised?
Just leave him a beer open and he'll behave.
You know, God doesn't want me and Satan's afraid I'll take over.
Just make an offering of some weed smoke and it'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll know what to put in your pile out there for you. We'll make sure we have it set up right.
Yeah, I kind of
like the Passover, you know.
Yeah.
I'm kind of on the same level there as Eric. You know, I don't think I would want to be quite as twisted as he is, but you never know. But you know, I always
think you could be.
You might be surprised. But you know, I always thought I'd be, you know, just the guy that would walk into the restaurant and some guy sitting there having his coffee and just reach down and spin his coffee cup around and watch him crap his pants. You know, just say it. You know, why not have a little fun with it? You know. I can always cross over to the light a little later, you know, and have a little fun first.
Markham doesn't want to be crossed over either.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not ready to go.
Yeah.
He's got too many people left tonight.
It's just because you're dead doesn't even have to be dull. I like the idea of moving stuff around. And
that's true. They aren't all dull.
You need your car keys. Good luck finding those. Oh, you need your ID badge to get to work?
See, I to be a little bit more, shall we say, polite about it. It's like, oh, you've definitely had too much to drink. You don't need the car keys. They're home waiting for you.
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
All right. Well, you know, I think we've had a pretty good show tonight. You know, we've talked about a lot of stuff tonight. We've got I think we put a lot of educational information out there along with a few jokes and everything else. It's been pretty good this evening. Yeah. So I think I'll go ahead and kind of start getting things wrapped up here. I would like to thank our panel tonight: Eric Markham, our Forest Moon paranormal scientist; R. Keith Andrews, our astrologer and alien specialist for Forest Moon Paranormal; Donna Cunningham and Bonnie Smith of our astral team; Thank you very much for coming on tonight. It's been a great evening talking with all of you and getting this information out there. Join us next Saturday at midnight Pacific Standard Time as we are going to be talking about geoengineering. You can find us on Spreaker.com, SpacedOutRadio.com, and The Fringe FM. I would like to thank all of our listeners because without you, there is no S4. Good night, and remember, keep your eyes to the skies.